Hi, this is Corinne Kavner, the Behavioral Health Operations Coordinator at Tri-County Health Network. Welcome to another edition of Mental Health Matters here on KOTO. We are hosting these shows on the third Wednesday of every month on KOTO to highlight resources and programs available in our community around mental health. Interviews will be posted at our website at tchnetwork.org following the broadcast. We are excited for you to have us today. Thank you to the KOTO News Department and Ben Kerr here at KOTO for making this possible. For this segment of Mental Health Matters, we are joined by Lindsay Wright, LMFT from the Telluride Regional Medical Center, and Robin Slater, LPC, LAC from the San Miguel Sheriff's Office. Thanks for being here, you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
First, will both of you introduce yourself and explain your positions?
Sure. I'm Lindsay Wright, and as Corinne mentioned, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I provide integrated behavioral health care at the Telluride Medical Center, meaning that I primarily see patients in collaboration with their primary care physician.
And my name is Robin Slater, and I'm a licensed professional counselor and a licensed addiction counselor, and I am a co-responder with the San Miguel Sheriff's Office. And what that means is if there is a behavioral health crisis in the community, then we actually go to that person's residence or where the crisis is occurring and begin our work with that individual to ensure that they're safe.
Thank you both. And listeners, if you've tuned into our Mental Health Matters show before, you've heard from both Lindsay and Robin. We've brought them both back to talk about a really important topic in our community, which is suicide prevention. Will one of you give us a quick introduction to the topic of suicide and how it relates to our community?
Do you want to, Robin, or should I?
I think go ahead, Lindsay, take it away.
Sure. Yeah. So, I think we all know what suicide is, but some things that maybe folks don't know is that as of 2019, suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the US, and people of all ages, genders, sexual orientations, ethnicities, and race, socioeconomic status die by suicide, even though some groups do see a higher prevalence rate than others. And one group that does see kind of a higher rate of suicide is mountain town communities. So I think that's really why it's important for us to talk about it, because our region in particular, anything kind of in the vein of the Rocky Mountains has the second highest suicide prevalence rate, with Alaska being the first in the US.
Robin, do you have anything to add to that?
I think exactly Lindsay pointing out that the mountain towns seem to have a higher prevalence, and also ski towns, because the isolation and transient nature. And so I think that that's also important for us to look at.
Thank you both. So the reason I have you here is to talk and learn more about suicide prevention and what you guys think our community members can do. Would you both give us some insight on that? Lindsay, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, as far as what community members can do, honestly, I think people can feel like it's really daunting to think about, like, well, what could I do? I'm just an average person, but really anyone can play a role in suicide prevention. So I think the most important thing is just to be of support to each other, to reach out and check in. And, if you're concerned about someone ending their life, just be direct, ask. We know that that does not increase the chance of someone ending their life, and it opens up a conversation to create a different plan for that person's future and to be able to share resources and keep that person safe.
Absolutely, thank you. And what do you think, Robin?
Yeah, I think that there are some things that we, can notice or see and observe within our friends, especially if we see a shift within their behavior, where maybe they were extremely outgoing and now they're isolating, just to feel free to approach them and say, hey, I've noticed some changes in your behavior. I've noticed an increase maybe in some substance use, and I just want you to know I love you and just concerned about you. So again, like Lindsay said, you need to really be able to talk about it openly with the individual And I call it kind of a bystander effect, where sometimes we'll notice these things within our loved ones, and we're hoping somebody else will bring it to light. I feel like we can, because we're not that professional. But to be honest with you, what we've realized is you don't need to be a professional. Be a present listener and available, and open up the dialogue.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks, Robin. So what should someone do if they think one of their peers is suicidal?
I think just, starting with what we were just talking about, talk to them, and maybe ask them difficult but, important questions about, are you actively thinking about acting on this? Have you taken any steps towards ending your life? And then on the other side, like, what can we do to keep you safe? Let's come up with a plan. Let's maybe remove anything that you might harm yourself with from your home, or figure out what the red flags are, what might get you in that place where you're having those suicidal thoughts. Who are supportive people you can reach out to? What coping skills can you use when you're having this like intense emotional reaction and these really intense thoughts? And then, of course, sharing resources.
Absolutely. Sounds like you really value making sure the person who might be having thoughts is active in deciding how they take care of themselves from there, and not just making decisions on their behalf.
Totally, because what's going to work for one person might not work for the next. Like, if I'm, kind of stressed out myself, maybe I might pull out like a craft project, but for some people, they'd be like, this is the worst. This is so stressful. So I think it's really individualized.
Absolutely. Anything to add, Robin?
Yeah, I think, again, just the collaboration among you and that individual who's experiencing that type of duress, because, what we also know is that it is to have that mixed emotion of wanting to live, but not wanting to live with the pain, so not really wanting to die. But having all of that kind of conflict. But if somebody is imminently suicidal, you can always call 911, and dispatch will dispatch out within our community a mobile crisis behavioral health specialist like myself. If you are concerned about that person, and just know that, again, we approach it as a collaboration among us and the individual, because if I come in and just take your rights and put you in a facility, you're going to come out and you're not going to want to engage in a mental health system. So it's really important that us too, as practitioners, collaborate with our clients and what their best care is.
Absolutely. And to further on with our conversation, what advice would you guys give to someone who has lost someone to suicide?
I think talk to someone is important. And to also give yourself permission that, we all grieve very differently. And oftentimes I think the initial shock of the event, but, again, be extremely gentle with yourself and what you're experiencing and what you're going through. And talk about it. Talk about the person. Use their name. I think the more that we're able to talk openly and reminisce, the better it is for the healing process.
Yeah, I would just echo everything Robin said. Give yourself time to grieve, be gentle with yourself. Remember there are so many different stages of grief, and anything you're feeling, every feeling has its own purpose. So try not to judge yourself for what you're feeling, or try not to give yourself like some timeline or expectation for, oh, well, I should be over this, or I should be feeling better, because that's just not really how grief works.
Right. Yeah, I've lost a friend to suicide, and like everything you guys have said has helped me, talking to a therapist. She actually gave me some wonderful advice where she said, some movies are just sad every time you watch them. So it's kind of like the same thing where, like, when you think about losing a friend in any type of way, sometimes it's just going to be sad, and talking about it is the only way you can really get yourself out of there. So thank you both for that insight. And, kind of the theme of us doing these Mental Health Matters shows is to talk about mental health in general and suicide. So in that vein, why do you guys think talking about mental health and suicide creates better outcomes for our community?
I mean, I think just at its most obvious, when we talk about something, we destigmatize it. So the more we're able to have these conversations, the more okay it is to have these conversations. And then, you know, on a bigger, more systemic scale, once we realize that this is a problem, we can even look at kind of the more structural inequities that might be contributing factors as well.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we talk about something, again, it provides a sense of connectedness. And what we know is that oftentimes when somebody is experiencing suicidal ideation, they're feeling a sense of loneliness and isolation. And the more that we can come together and talk about it, we're actually destigmatizing it, normalizing actually having this issue between not really wanting to do the suffering and the pain sometimes, you know, and how do we live to our fullest potential. So I think talking about it really does help provide a sense of connectedness and normalizing that experience.
Thank you. We have a couple more minutes here. Is there anything else you guys want people to know about suicide prevention or just mental health in general?
Nothing.
Again, I think if you're I just say talk. Find someone within your own support system. So if you are feeling some of these feelings that Lindsay and I mentioned today, just reach out to your friend, family, somebody that you trust, that you can have just that open dialogue conversation with.
Absolutely.
I think the only other thing too to remember is if you're in that kind of dark place where you're having these, you know, really big, heavy thoughts, just remembering that really, you know, the only constant is change. It's really unlikely that you'll feel that same level of intensity of these same thoughts forever. So while it might be hard right now, it likely won't be this hard forever.
Thank you for that, Lindsay. That was beautiful. Well, as always, thank you both so much for being here. Again, this is Lindsay Wright and Robin Slater on this interview with me. And if you or anyone you know is experiencing suicidal thoughts, please call the Colorado Crisis Line at 1-844-493-8255. And join us next time on May 19th for our next edition of Mental Health Matters. If you are interested in learning more about our behavioral health programs at Tri-County Health Network, please email us at info@tchnetwork.org or call our offices at 970-708-7096.